Lingche in response to Prefect Wei Dan at the Donglin Monastery. An old man, his mind at ease, with no external concerns. A hempen garment and grass hassock, good enough to accommodate my body. Everyone I meet says better to resign from office. But here, beneath the trees, I never see anyone. So we continue with some extra poets and poems that should have been or might have been included in the 300 Tang poems. Lingche is an example of a figure that we've encountered. He is a Buddhist monk poet, which, as you will remember, like women, is a category that's generally excluded from the 300 Tang poems anthology. Let's start with a brief biography of Lingche. He's a mid-Tang poet, which means he flourishes in the first years of the 9th century. He came from Kuaiji, which is on the east coast of China, in Zhejiang. It had been in the remote past, the capital of one of the warring states of Jue, the only partially Sinicized, strong southern rival of Chu. So he entered the Jungmen Monastery there at a young age. Jungmen is a Cloud Gate Monastery, a pretty famous monastery in Zhejiang. And, well, he studied there, but then moved around. And his poetry was especially popular during the Dali period, 766, 779. He met and interchanged poets with some of the important mid-high Tang and mid-Tang poets like Liu Changqing, Yao Ran, also a poet monk with whom he studied, Liu Jushi, Chuan Deyu, and a few others, even Liu Zunyuan, I think, and Liu Yuxi. So he traveled all over the country. He lived in different monasteries in the capital, at the foot of Mount Lu. In fact, this poem, composed at the Donglin Monastery, or the Eastern Forest Monastery, was one of the most important of all Tang monasteries. It was in Mount Lu, an important place for the Pure Land Buddhist sect, I think. And, well, at the end of his life, he returned to his home territories, I think, yeah, or the nearabouts. Okay, Lingche, that's enough for his biography, and he was quite a prolific author, up to 2,000 poems during his lifetime. Not that many have been preserved. There are 17 only, in fact, in the Chuang Tangxi, and 1 or 2 more in other works. This poem is in response to Prefect Wei Dan. It makes me think, because I distinctly remember at least 1 or 2 poems that I've read. One of them in the 300 Tang poems dedicated or sent to a Wei Dan, so he might have been a very important, or at least a middling important figure in mid-Tang poetry. But anyway, this poem is a response to this Prefect, and this is a very typical poem in some respects. It's a typical poem of the retired scholar official. Well, in this case, it's a Buddhist monk, but the person who has retired from office talking, having a real or an imaginary conversation with a civil servant, with a scholar official. And the convention in these poems is that, the scholar official sighs for the retired life, searches for and finds his friend, the hermit. And, the hermit just explains the virtues of the retired life. This is a short poem. It's just a quatrain, a heptasyllabic quatrain, which seems to have been Lingche's most popular genre, the one at which, or for which he was the most recognized. So the topic of the poem is going to be the abandonment of the world, the retired life, unpolluted from the red dust of the world of ambition, of courtly favor and of silly purposes. But it also includes a little note of satire at the end, which we will comment in a minute. The poem, remember, Chinese poetry seldom makes use of pronouns, but it does feel as if it was written in the first person. I mean, this seems to be Lingche speaking. I mean, it's his poetic persona, but it's pretty close to that of a retired monk. In fact, while Lingche was in Mount Lu, he had been previously exiled from another monastery because of murmurings of the other monks. So he was definitely far from the world of the capital. Let's take a look at the poem, couplet by couplet, just 2 couplets. Couplet 1. An old man, his mind at ease, with no external concerns, a hempen garment and grass hassock, good enough to accommodate my body. So this first couplet presents the protagonist and speaker. It's this monk that has abandoned the world. How is he feeling? What's his state of mind after returning from banishment? So the first couplet is very descriptive, but like the first line clearly says, mind at ease, no external concerns. So we get a description of the poet and of his state of mind. The description is more extensive in the second line, but the description is old man, and he's wearing, poor clothes, a hempen garment, grass hassock, good enough to accommodate my body. So not luxurious courtier's clothes, but also not formal Buddhist monk robes or anything. It's just, the poorest type of clothes that a hermit would wear, any type of hermit, Buddhist or Taoist. And the important thing is, wearing these poor clothes, living this retired life, he is at ease with no external concerns. Like he is happy, he is detached from worldly matters. So he is, and from this point of view, this is the voice and this is the persona of the typical hermit that has abandoned the world. Second couplet. Everyone I meet says better to resign from office. But here beneath the trees, I never see anyone. This beneath the trees, Lingche, is a conventional trope suggesting retirement. So the idea in the second couplet, the poet is detached from worldly matters, but he still manages to, to show the barb of sarcasm or of satire to those people that come to visit him. We saw that as a conventional trope that, many courtiers and scholar officials went south to Chengshang, the mountains just to the south of the capital, Chang'an, for retiring in their free time and for talking with hermits, praising them and, sighing for the retired life. But those sighs were a bit hypocritical. I mean, most scholar officials, whatever they might say in their poems about the desire for the retired life, really continued with the life at court, with trying to get promotions and important positions at court. And, this is what Lingche seems to be mildly making fun of in this couplet. So people say, oh, yeah, we should resign, but nobody actually does so. He is alone here beneath the trees. So this is an interesting thing, it seems. The person who wrote this biography and translated this poem, 2 people actually, Jin Huaya and Chen Shihuang, in the Biographical Dictionary of Tang Dynasty Literati, comment that this kind of direct satirical poem is seldom seen in Tang poetry. The conventions of decorum and of how and what to speak of in a poem are, very, very strong during the Tang. So a curious poem by a Buddhist monk, and slightly unusual, also in many ways quite conventional.